good afternoon. And for others in our international audience, perhaps it's good evening or even good morning. I'm Miriam Martinez, a U.S. BBY board member that represents the International Literacy Association, and I am delighted to welcome you to what promises to be a very exciting webinar that's sponsored by the United States Board on Books for Young People. We're going to have the opportunity today to meet a variety of individuals involved in writing, illustrating, translating, or publishing global literature for young people. And the books that you're going to be hearing about are ones that appear on the 2023 US BBY Outstanding International Books list. And I posted a link to the complete list in the chat. So I encourage you to download this list of outstanding international books. So without further delay, I'm going to turn the webinar over to Evie Freeman, past president of US BBY. Evie.
Thank you so much, Miriam. The United States Board on Books for Young People, USBBY, is pleased to co-sponsor this webinar with ILA. USBBY's goal is to build bridges of understanding through children's and young adult books. USBBY is one of 81 national sections of the International Board on Books for Young People, founded by Jelle Lettmann in 1953. Lettmann, a German-Jewish woman, worked with children in Germany after World War II, established the International Youth Library in Munich, which is still thriving today, and IBI. She felt that if one is to believe in peaceful coexistence, the first messengers of that peace will be in children's books. The map indicates all the national sections of IBI in red. IBI, USBBY, and the other national sections are a forum for collaboration. IBI's mission is to promote international understanding through children's books. To fulfill this mission, USBBY has its own missions. We explore and promote reading materials of literary merit that have been created around the world for young people. For instance, as Miriam mentioned, we produce an annual list of outstanding international books. We facilitate the exchange of books of international interest for young people. To support this mission, we co-sponsor sessions at NCTE, ALA, and ILA, such as this webinar today. And we host an IBI regional conference and other special programs and events. We promote the reading of international books by young people. We support this mission through the ways that have already been mentioned and through the celebration of International Children's Book Day. USBBY was established in the early 1960s by the American Library Association and the Children's Book Council. Currently, our members, who are librarians, educators, authors, illustrators, and publishers, and anyone who loves children's books, represent 44 states. We partner with key literacy organizations, the International Literacy Association, the National Council of Teachers of English, the American Library Association, and the Children's Book Council. USBBY engages in many activities to support IBI projects and programs. We have USBBY committees that nominate for the Hans Christian Andersen Award, the IBI Asahi Award, and the IBI I Read Award. Because of IBI, USBBY is also able to nominate for the Astrid Lindgren Memorial Award. We also have committees that suggest books for the IBI Honor List and the IBI Outstanding Books for Young People with Disabilities list. Our members have generously donated to IBI's Children in Crisis Fund. This fund provides programs for children who are experiencing war, earthquakes, tsunamis, and other devastating events. Every year, IBBY sponsors the International Children's Book Day, held on or around April 2nd in honor of Hans Christian Andersen's birthday. This day celebrates to inspire the love of reading and to call attention to children's books. Through a poster and a message, this day celebrates children and their books around the world with special programs and activities held by all IBBY national sections. There are many ways to become involved with USBBY. You can attend our USBBY co-sponsored events and conferences, which have an international focus. You can volunteer to help with USBBY projects or contribute to one of our many vibrant committees. You can also become a state ambassador, an individual in your own state who promotes USBBY in various ways. One of our most special projects is the annual list of outstanding international children's books. Each year, a committee selects an annual list of about 40 books. The list is published as a bookmark and also published in the February issue of School Library Journal. Some other USBBY projects include the Bridge to Understanding Award, which recognizes programs and projects that promote international understanding through children's literature. USBBY supports 4 national sections as its twinning partners: Haiti, Lebanon, Palestine, and El Salvador. We pay the IBBY dues of these national sections, who would be unable to participate in the IBBY family without our support. We also have a partnership with Reforma and work with them to support the migrant children at the U.S. border. And we are thrilled that we also have a partnership with Teaching Books. Each member of USBBY receives a subscription to Teaching Books, a $125 benefit. USBBY members annotate international books that are included on the Teaching Books database. We hope and encourage you to join USBBY, your gateway to the world of international children's literature. Our website is usbby.org. We hope you will visit it, and we hope you will join us. Thank you so much for this opportunity to tell you some things about USBBY. Thank you, Miriam.
Hi, I think it's my turn. And well, first of all, I want to apologize for my English. And second, I really appreciate this invitation. I'm thrilled. And I'm here to speak, to introduce you to my book, Different, and the story behind the story I wrote. Different, it's about 2 little kids, a boy and a girl, who had to live their childhood in the Civil War in Spain in the 30s, and then after the war in the 40s, it was even worse for them. And it's the story of my father and his sister, and I interviewed them, and it was magical for me as a writer, because their vision of the same thing they live were opposite, different, absolutely different. My father, all the stories of my father were about how hungry he was and the food that he wanted to eat and he couldn't, because my grandmother was the wife of one of the Republicans who lost the Civil War. And they couldn't tell anyone because it was very dangerous for them. if the people knew. So, and my grandmother didn't have a special card they gave the women to buy food. So he was very hungry. Sorry, I think I said angry, and he was also angry, but he was basically hungry. And my aunt, his sister, was the opposite. She didn't want to eat. I think that was the way that she se reveló. Like if they couldn't gave her food, she didn't want to eat. And for me as a writer, it was very interesting to know these two stories of the same story, two visions of the same story. So I wrote the book in the voice of the little kid, one chapter, and the other in the voice of the little girl. And so there's that's the way I found to give this perspective of these two kids who were in danger when they were little and how they survived. And my grandfather had to leave because he was he was going to be killed, and they passed 8 years without seeing each other until my grandfather sent them a letter. Only 5 letters. Sorry, what? And they spent 8 years without knowing about his father until they could emigrate to a country that they had never listened about. That's Venezuela, the country where I was born. And they finally reached his father. And well, that's more or less the story that I wrote in these two kids that were different between them, but most of all they were different from all the others children that study in their schools. And I wrote it in 2016 because many what I wanted was that many kids from my country, from Venezuela, were living the same thing. The family separated because of the situation of my country. And I wanted my own children and all Venezuelan children and Latin American children that read the book to know that only 70 years ago, this happened sorry, this happened to a lot of people. It was on the contrary, it was people from Europe who had to leave their countries, and they came to our countries in our continent. And Venezuela was in the 1940s and 1950s a country who received a lot of Spanish people and Italian people and even German people who had to leave their country because we had food, we had peace. And my family went there, and they were also different because they were from the accent was different, but that was not dangerous for them. So I wanted my kids and every kid who can read the book to know there is no country better than other countries, just different circumstances that make you, that change your life and that make you have to immigrate. when I wrote it in 2016, I didn't know me and my family were about to live the same thing that I wrote here. And we became characters from my book, because my grandmother left Spain in 1946 with his 2 kids and her mother, and went to Venezuela. And in 2017, me and my mother and my 2 kids left Venezuela and came here to Madrid. Well, it's also something magic that happened for me with this book. I also want this book to help children that live in their own countries, that doesn't have to immigrate, and to understand and feel empathy for the kids that maybe they are in the same classrooms and just arrived from another country. Maybe they don't speak the language, maybe they dress different, they're different. But I hope when they read the book, they can imagine and comprehend that they have lived something like this. So prevent the bully, and if you put yourself in the shoes of other kids, maybe you will be kind with them. And well, I don't know. I'm really sorry because my English is not good, but then that's what I wanted to say about different. And this, yeah. It's a beautiful book, not for me, but because of the marvelous illustrations of Eva Sanchez Gomez, and it's a wonderful traduction of Lawrence Schimmel, who also added a little story of what happened in Spain in the 1930s, when there was a republic and there was a war. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica, for sharing with us about your book, Different. It is an amazing book. And I'm Isaac Willis Larison. I served on the US BBY Committee for the Outstanding International Book Awards. And when we received this book, it never left my hands for a minute. As soon as I opened the box and pulled it out, it just was so captivating and such an amazing story. And we thank you so much for spending your time and sharing with us about your book. We are going to move on to Mari Kunstan Johnson, who is the illustrator for the book Bedtime for Bo. And it's another amazing book that we were so privileged and so happy to receive for this year's consideration. So Mari, if you would like to go ahead and please share. Thank you.
Yes. Oh, sorry. It's
We can see your screen, yes.
okay. It says here I'm viewing Miriam Martinez screen. Okay, but let me see if can I do this? There.
Thank you.
Okay. I just thought I would say. Oh, sorry. I will try again. Can you see me? No. Sorry.
Yes, we can see you. Go ahead, Mary.
Okay. I will just find the screen.
I can see you.
Okay. Hi. Yeah, I'm coming from. I'm joining from Oslo. I will talk a little bit about Bedtime for Bo, which was published in by Enchanted Lion Books in fall 2020. So I have illustrated the book, and it's written by Kjersti Annesdatter Skomsvold. So first published in Norwegian. Now I try to share.
Yes, we see your screen.
Yes, it was better. Okay. There is better. Okay. And sorry, can you see the full screen now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Good. So I will just talk a little bit about kind of the process of illustrating the book. It's a story about well, it's a bedtime story, and it's about Bo, who is very reluctant to go to bed, and you can see his mother is typically doing all the last housework of the evening, and she's kind of tired, but kind of as the book goes along, then Bo manages to convince his mother to play along with his ideas of animals, and he talks about how animals sleep, and so they start to have this talk together about different animals and how they sleep, and they kind of become animals together in a conversation, and they kind of play acting like different animals all the way until bed. Yeah, here's thinking about being a giraffe. And so I think when I first got this, when I got the script from the publishing house, oh yeah, I'll just go through. He ends up in bed. When I got the script, it was a lot of things I really liked, but I think what I especially liked was kind of this chemistry between the mother and the son, and how they are kind of living their life close to each other, doing their different things. But in the beginning of the story, the mother is well, she wants to get to bed as quick as possibly because she's tired. But then Bo is wanting to do a lot, and then I really liked how she just decides to really go along with all his ideas and kind of take this opportunity they have at bedtime to really connect with each other and create these stories together. And I really liked already when I had the script this kind of the connection between the two of them, and they are both very playful but also very close and warm. So I really wanted in the illustration to get this connection between them. So this is something I really worked a lot with and sketching a lot to find their characters and their tone together. And also having these different kind of images from the text of where they are in the animal world, and kind of yeah, also showing this bond between mother and son. So I was really from the beginning very fond of these characters. And another thing which I thought was very important was and which is also so evident in the text is this extreme energy of children and this playfulness, even though it's time to go to bed, but it's still you know, when you really have extra energy for the last minutes. So I was really drawing a lot to get up the speed of the drawing to get kind of the energy of Bo. And this is something I think a lot about in probably all over the world, but in Norway, we talk a lot about how the school has become more and more about learning. And it used to be like in the first years of school, it would be a lot more playing, but now it's such a pressure to kind of achieve well in school, and children are often losing a bit the ability to play. And this is something I really wanted to explore in the book, just this kind of the wilderness of children when they're playing, which I really enjoy, and trying just to get the spontaneity of children in the drawings. And then there is also, of course, in this very important aspect in this book is this play between how Bo is talking about different animals. He knows a lot about animals, so it seems like this is maybe a family where they talk a lot about animals, and they are kind of curious about nature and animals. And I think a lot of kids are, and it's kind of a sad thing that you kind of grow out of thinking so much about. But I thought it was very interesting in the like when I was reading the text, then it was just said that now Bo and Mother is running up the stairs like a giraffe or something, and I would get images, quite clear images in my head. But when I actually started to draw everything, it was very nice to try out all the alternatives of how much they are human and how much they are animals, and how much you can kind of still recognize them even if they are becoming animals, and also playing with all the environment in the house where they live, because they have a lot of real animals and also stuffed animals, and kind of playing a bit with letting everything become alive in this a bit like magical moments before bed when everything is possible. And also this to, even when they're becoming quite different from their usual self, when they're like parents, to have this still this kind of playful connection between the mother and Bo. And also I think one thing I really enjoy when making books, in addition to kind of getting this capturing the characters and kind of the dynamic between the main characters, is also to just really fill out the images with layers of things and things happening a bit hidden, so that I think especially going to bed books is something you read again and again, and it's nice to be able to discover new layers of things and things you maybe didn't see before. So I had a lot of fun with this in this book, which is like actually the physical book is extra large, so it's like big spreads with space to draw a lot on. And yeah, that's coming to an end. And I heard from a lot of parents that it's a very engaging book, so the kids are very much awake after reading it. But in the book, then Bo finally falls asleep after letting out all his energy. And yes, I think that's, thank you from me.
Thank you so much, Mari. It really is a wonderful book, and it's hard to get an idea of just seeing it on the screen, but you can see how large the book is, the format of it, and then these double page spreads that Mari was talking about. And also how every page there's so much to see and so many things to think about on each page of the book. We really appreciate you sharing with us, and I especially enjoyed the pencil drawings that you shared to kind of let us have a window into your process with making the art for the book. And it has been well received by lots of audiences, young children and their parents especially. We are going to move on now to Paloma Valdivia, and she is the illustrator for the Book of Questions. And this book is another beautifully illustrated, obviously beautifully written and illustrated book. And we're very pleased to have Paloma with us. Thank you so much.
Well, hello, thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen. Well, my name is Paloma Valdivia. I'm a Chilean author and illustrator. My true passion lies in writing, creating, and illustrating children's books. For me, books are magical objects, toys, blankets, safe places. They are also fireworks that illuminate childhood and leave that light engraved forever. I like to think that my books can be part of those lights. In 2015, Enchanted Lion Books offered me to illustrate the bilingual edition of the Book of Questions by Pablo Neruda. I have been an illustrator for 20 years, and I have never had such a complex project to conceptualize and illustrate on my hands. I was delighted to accept the project because I learned to read at school with poems by Gabriela Mistral and with these questions from Neruda. The invitation was totally challenging, to create a book that invites us to look at the world with different eyes, with total creative and formal freedom. The main premise was, I should not illustrate the answers, as the children must think of their own answers. The illustration should open the question. From this place, how can a question of this amazing nature be illustrated? Like, how old is November? Or, and what do you call that month between December and January? Neruda's questions are not an easy text to illustrate because they are layers of thoughts and ideas that are sometimes a bit confusing to interpret. They can be read in a very simple way or read to more complex places. To shape them, I found the following way. 1. Finding the shape, the common thread. I had to find some way to make sense of these questions. Neruda spent his life writing them down, which meant that they were no friend anywhere, neither in time, nor place, nor in historical period. They were questions about what he observed and thought through his life. After thinking about it a lot, I thought that an interesting way to frame these questions was to turn this book into the diary of a naturalist or explorer who begins and years, who sees the world for the first time and he's surprised by the new species and the beauty or without reasons of nature. Here is where my book proposal begins, and years of emails with the editor and translator, Sarah Paulson, because there was not only a topic of how to conceptualize the question, but also how to translate it. This was the idea we decided to follow. Neruda as a naturalist explorer of a new world that he wished to discover and capture. There was a lot to read to be able to spin this way of telling. I settled mainly of reading Alexander von Humboldt and Charles Darwin. 2. Know the biography, work, and houses of the poet. At the same time, I immerse myself in reading the poet's works and biography. as well as visiting his houses. It was so difficult for me to illustrate his poems that delving into his work was for me like looking for clues in his head. To my joy and surprise, it succeeded. I toured the poet 3 houses several times, La Chascona in Bellavista, La Sebastiana in Valparaíso, and the house on Isla Negra. From those tours, I got many images, ideas, and answers that will be applied in the book. 3. Find an aesthetic in accordance with the project. Embroidery of the woman of Isla Negra, old maps, decorative objects from his houses, elements of nature, collection of things, dissected animals, ancient instruments to measure the sky, plastic reference of art brut, knife painting, his collection of shells as a present element that represent his love for nature. The spiral that makes it up is micro, but at the same time, the macro. The universe with his galaxies, the small sea shell that keeps the immense sounds of the entire ocean. Just as Claudia gave me the promise of not illustrating the answer, mine was. Each illustration must be related to something I have seen or read by Pablo Neruda. From his poems, reflections, or childhood memories, decoration in his houses, elements of nature. When I defined that, the way to solve this book ended up being closed. 4. Understand how children see Pablo Neruda. I was able to visit the house on Isla Negra in company of a group of children. We took a tour. We talked about the figure of the poet, and when we left, I asked them to draw what they liked the most. The elements that they drew were also the most significant for me, and I knew that I was on the right path. And these are some pages of the book. There is a young Neruda starting his journey. And I invite you to read and look at this book calmly and with new eyes. This book is a journey through a piece of a truth by a Chilean poet. Thank you.
Thank you, Paloma. The book is beautifully illustrated, and it was wonderful to see the integration of the children's artwork from your visit to his home. I just really appreciated this. I was looking at the book a little bit as you were sharing, and it's wonderful. We also have Sarah Lissa Paulson with us, who is the translator for the Book of Questions, and we'd like to have her talk about her work with this book as well. Thank you so much.
Hi. And good afternoon, good evening. So happy to be here, and so lovely to see Paloma and all those beautiful images of what came forth into this Book of Questions, this bilingual edition, and that I'll talk about as a translator. My name is Sarah Lissa Paulson, and I've translated the Book of Questions, and it's just an honor to be here, to be speaking with a group of committed educators from across the world, and also to be part of one of the books that was selected for the 2023 US BBY Best International Books list. kind of over the moon and the rainbow, that English-speaking children now have access to this classic of children's literature from Chile. And I'm going to linger here for a minute. So how did this project come into being? Let me start a little bit with Neruda. Neruda is known as a poet of the people, as French ambassador. Just to connect back to the book Different, he was able to get about 2,000 people out of Spain during the Civil War. But he's also, I think, in the Book of Questions and in his Canto General, which I would translate as Song of Everything, he proves to be a poet of the universe, placing the perspectives of birds, rivers, minerals, and oceans side by side with the human, which kind of brings me back to the book Bedtime for Bo, because that's a lot of the play that's involved in these questions are opportunities for young people to play as a moon or the stars or a river and experience those kinds of changes in perspective. So in Latin America, the selections for children of Libro de Preguntas have been published since the 90s. You can see a couple of book covers here from previous selections for children. And the first translation into English was in 2001 by Copper Canyon Press. But I first found this book in Spanish in Guadalajara in 2014 at the annual Feria del Libro, the largest international Spanish book fair in the world, and I highly recommend that everyone goes. That year, I discovered many independent presses and came back with a pile of books that I bought for my elementary school library and for myself. I went to FEEL, as it is known in Spanish, as a school librarian, looking for books to incite wonder in my students so their research would be inventive and delightful and not so much of a chore. So I could procure new culturally relevant books in Spanish for my Spanish lunchtime book club, and to find books to promote philosophical thinking in the very young. I found so many Latin American picture books with less alienation and a deeper affinity for the natural world than the ones I had seen in North America. So I think the joyful, the playful joy and reverence for nature in the questions is kind of, it creates more empathy with the natural world. And that's how I see the beauty of this book and the reasons it's important, you know, for me. And I hope that you can share it with children of all ages. So shortly after I returned to New York, I met Claudia Vedrick, the editor of Enchanted Lions, at a book event and had the opportunity to show her my beloved stack of small press gems. And among them, pictured here is Media Vaca's Libro de Preguntas. It was published in Spain, illustrated by Isidoro Ferrer. So it's pictured here. And Claudia, out of all my stack, picked that one that she was interested in publishing, and with a vision not to publish the entire book, but rather in an illustrated selection. And she invited me to take on the work as a translator. So I proceeded to translate the entire book of 74 questions, 320 questions in total. And from that rough draft, we chose a set of questions for younger children and a set for teens around themes that would generate conversation. So like as Paloma was saying, not to answer the questions, but generate conversation and empathy and play. So you'll find in the book of questions, many questions about the seasons, about transportation, numbers, the sky, the earth, animals, plants, on emotions such as sadness and joy, and on the mysteries of the soul and of death. I created a dummy of how one might organize all of these questions thematically, and I gave it to Claudia to send to Paloma, and who had accepted the job as illustrator. And Claudia and I worked on a word level from the beginning, and her mentorship was invaluable to me as a translator. I met with Paloma via Zoom to share ideas and image references and go through the questions after she sent a first draft to Claudia. And by the final draft, as you see, Paloma had thoroughly recreated the book as this visual narrative with trifolds to open and behold. And then in 2020, Eugenia, the book designer, joined as a book designer and Spanish consultant, and we collaboratively aligned some of the questions a little more strictly to the original Spanish, because Claudia had procured the rights for a bilingual text. So the English and the Spanish were going to now live side by side. So, so we all finally met on Zoom to discuss the cover and the title and design in summer of 2020. And the book was born 2 years later on April 24th, 2022. So I kind of wanted to go into how he models a conversation for us to have with the natural world. And when sharing this book, you know, it is, as Paloma had mentioned, it's a book of poetry. So they're very, you know, there are couplets on each page in Spanish and English, but it's not a book that you read from page to page. It's rather a book you want to kind of dip into and linger and then dive deeper into the questions. So this, on the back cover, you see this question: does the earth chirp like a cricket in the symphony of the skies? So we're gonna go deeper. You might have that as a preface to read aloud, or when you're going to sleep at night with your child. Well, what does the earth sound like? And all of these questions, there are a lot you can do with them. And these are some of the ideas that I had that I'm going to describe briefly. But this living the curiosity and contemplating the mysteries of life is what this book really opens you up to, really. So that's what the magic is. So, and here's an example of unpacking the concept. So with each, these questions, they can be unpacked. So, so basically this one has a few concepts. It has crickets, the skies, symphonies. So what does this cricket sound like? And this is kind of the way a conversation could go, you know? What did the earth sound like before machines? So because there's this kind of vastness of the earth and the smallness of a cricket. And when you start to talk about this and then talk about what is a symphony, what, you know, well, if it's a symphony and the earth sounds like a cricket, who would else be playing in that symphony? And so this is a way that you could start a conversation ad infinitum with students, with your children, and with others. And once you unpack some of the concepts, you can play with those concepts. So you could have an instrument basket with all of the sounds of the universe, or maybe you would have the skies, the clouds and the moon and the stars, or, you know, or maybe you have a planet from outer space. But anyway, you could kind of create cutouts, 2D cutouts, and play and have dramatic play for the very young. With, I think, all ages, to make observations from the different perspectives of the elements in the question is another way to approach it. So if you were a butterfly, here's a question like, when does the butterfly read what flies written on its wings? So that could be a great place for, you know, running around. You're all butterflies out in the playground, and you have different patterns on your wings, and everybody reads them and creates their own poetry or creates their own songs. So this is a way that, you know, all ages could explore. There have been 2 books. This new book by Ed Young is all about the perspectives and the different ways that different animals perceive the world from their own sensory perception, systems of perception. When you get a little older, you could do ask more questions, and it could generate more questions. You could jumpstart research, like, does sound travel through the universe? If you're talking about a symphony of the sky, and that it's not an easy answer. What are some of the oldest sounds on Earth? How long have crickets been singing on Earth? You could research, you could pair questions. There are questions about the wrinkles and there are holes in the sky, and one question like holes in the rock. And another question, so you could pair questions and do some really more creative research. And older students, you know, you could do a lot with the way that Neruda is kind of creating reversals or paradoxes, contrasts between things in the visual poetry that he presents in the book. So I think all ages can really use this book to explore and create a deeper affinity for the natural world. This is a chart I made of just different developmental stages and what you could do. So, you know, for a 6-year-old who's really loves new ideas and asking questions, you can find the questions within those questions, as I demonstrated. With 9-year-olds who might want more explanations and scientific exploration, you could actually, you know, do research projects and learn more about these things and talk about them. So these are some ideas for activities across ages. And just a few notes about the translation. Neruda uses a lot of long vowels, and when he reads aloud, he really extends those. So the last example you see, I just wanted to touch on. The greatest challenges were with that kind of rhythm, meter, cadence, trying to have the cadence in English fall on the same syllable as the cadence in Spanish, and the syntax to preserve that when possible. So the last example there is a phrase, you know, with con tantas flores y colores, and the translation, you know, to get the flores y colores with crowds of colorful flowers. So, you know, the biggest challenges and when you felt like you did it well, you know, were the biggest victories in a sense. So I know I'm running out of time. What I really think is beautiful about this couplet format, which you see in each page, the questions, I'll just read one from well, here's the other one from this page. This is the cricket page that I kind of dwelled on. Who shouted for joy when the color blue was born? So they're very short, and the simplicity of the form, I think, reaches all ages. You know, were colors born? So you can go into the birth of colors. You know, were they? And you really start to think about the whole universe, the whole cosmology. So he brings us there over and over again in this book. And I do think that this short couplet form is accessible for children. They can write a poem with 2 lines, right? Just like Mo Willems can draw, he wants children to be able to draw what he's drawing. And I think Neruda in some of these questions, and not all of them, but in this selection, you know, these reflect children's experiences, and they can also be inspired to create poetry. And likewise, Sandra Cisneros, you know, that microfiction, she wanted everybody to be able to read her book. And it occupies, according to Julio Alvarez, occupies a big space on that shelf of Latin American literature because of the accessibility. And we all need to be more empathetic with the natural world. And I think globally, that's a great part of what drew me to this book. And just a few notes about poetry. You know, that this quote by Henry Cartier-Bresson, poetry is two elements which are suddenly in conflict, a spark between elements. And with that, the cricket and the earth seems to really, that means emblematic of that. And that's really where poetry lies, when you can create that spark and that energy and the imagination. And I think sharing this book with children of all ages is a way to do that. And I hope, I'm very grateful to Paloma and to Claudia, to Eugenia. We all created this, you know, together, and it was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having me to talk here.
Thank you so much, Sarah Lissa. And I especially appreciated that you talked about how this book is a wonderful book to share with children of all ages and adults. And I remember when I was reading the book, just how lost you can get in the questions. And you really sparked that for us when you were speaking about how deep you can go into the questions. They appear very simple on one level, but then there's an incredible depth that you can think about and explore. And I was watching some of the chat, and people were really enjoying, especially your connections to curriculum and how the book, sharing the book with children and young adults is a wonderful way of extending literacy and language lessons. And that's so much appreciated among teachers of all ages. So thank you so much. We have with us several publishers, and the first is Kathleen Mertz, and she is from Erdman's Publishing. And so Kathleen is going to share a little bit with us. You heard Sarah Lissa mention Claudia and how publishers are essential to this whole process. And so we'll hear from a couple of publishers. So Kathleen, it's your turn. Thank you.
Thanks, Isaac. And thanks so much to everyone who put this event together. And thanks to everyone who's watching for all of your interest in global literature. I'm the editorial director for Erdman's Books for Young Readers. And here at EBYR, we've been publishing books in translation, international books, for well over a decade now. And it's something that we're strongly committed to continuing. Different will actually be a part of our Stories from Latin America series, which we're officially rolling out this fall in hopes of bringing more awareness to books from an area of the world that we feel is underrepresented in the US marketplace. It's an honor and a delight to be able to publish these titles. As the children's book industry continues to have critical, overdue conversations about the importance of diversity, that publishing books from other countries, it really adds a valuable aspect to that diversity. Books from other countries offer a reminder that the expectations and the assumptions that we have about those countries and about the people who live in those countries, those assumptions may not be accurate at all. But at the same time, international books offer reminders of all of the ways that even across borders, we share deep human similarities, our dreams, our fears, our joys, our comforts. As Monica described, Different does a wonderful job of capturing the experience of two children who are affected by war and the realities of living under a government that's determined to eradicate those who don't share its views. And the realities of people having to uproot their lives to move to a new country. Different captures a slice of history, the Spanish Civil War and math that may very be unfamiliar to many readers in the US, but the theme experience captured in the story are ones that will feel very familiar in a lot of ways to many readers. There are so many creators and publishers around the world who are making profound, thought-provoking, incredibly creative books. And the art and the history and the experiences reflected in those books has really deep relevance for readers in the US. So Publishing international books lets us help readers cultivate empathy and better global understanding. And it also lets us, all of us readers here in the US, have a bit broader enjoyment of all the brilliant creators who are telling stories around the world.
Thank you, Kathleen. We'll hear from Claudia now. And as Kathleen was speaking and referencing readers from all around the world, and certainly participating in this webinar are people from all over the world. And I think that it just illustrates for us the importance of global literature. So Claudia, if you would like to share a little bit about Enchanted Lion Publishing and your reasons for working with international literature.
Hi, Isaac, I'm here. I'm not sure how to show myself. Maybe I have to can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Let's see. There we go.
There you are. Thank you.
There I am, technologically challenged. Sorry. Thank you, Isaac and Miriam, for arranging this, organizing it, and doing all the behind the scenes work. And my thanks to anyone else who was involved in that process too. And it's really nice to be with all of you today. I just realized that we published our first book in translation in 2006. So we are nearing 20 years of books in translation. And one of our reasons we have many reasons for publishing books in translation. One of them being something Sarah touched on in her presentation, which is to bring young readers here books that open up questions in a way that US books don't tend to typically do. I mean, one of the things you find when you're looking at books published in many countries around the world is that they have a very different narrative structure. There's a real diversity, not only in terms of aesthetics and art making, but in terms of storytelling and narrative shape. And many books published elsewhere and far away from our tradition here of the sort of beginning, middle, and end, where we kind of close off the story, wrap it all up, and bring it to a neat ending. Books from other places don't do that as typically as we do. And so there will be many more questions and many more kind of ponderings left hanging for children to think about and consider. We also publish books in translation because of we exist within language. And so, existing within the English language means that we exist within a grammar that defines the world for us in a very particular way. And books coming from other languages and concepts and thoughts defined within other grammars take a different conception or consideration of the world. And so, some of the things that we take for granted or just think that everybody everywhere might believe are shown up to be constructions of our culture and our language, and not necessarily what people all around the world take to be the norm, or to be the value system or standard they live within. I think I'm probably closing in on my 3 minutes already here, but I had wanted to share just a few images from books we have published. This is the first book that we published in both an original Spanish edition and in English simultaneously. This is from Decor, who is an artist from Argentina. And we worked with Decor to begin with before Eugenia joined our team pretty much through Google Translate. I don't speak Spanish. Decor's English is getting better, but wasn't really existent at that time. And so we came together and really had an understanding across our different languages and cultures as to the book that we wanted to make together. And so we published this here as an Enchanted Lion original book. So, in translation, but not brought in to be translated from having already been published overseas. This just shows you a little bit about the decisions we're making when we are publishing a book in terms of art. And here you can see the different languages that Decor is engaging with herein, from kind of graphic novel conception, illustration, line drawing, and then as we get deeper into the book, also going into paper cutout and using some very, very different aesthetic styles to tell his story, with that being the last of it. This is a book that we bought from Japan. And this is our cover for the book, which is very, very different from the Japanese. Here you can see the Japanese cover, and this is what we ended up doing with the book. The Japanese title is pretty much just Sky. And in terms of how books are discovered here, metadata, search, and all of those things, Sky seemed a pretty terrible title for this book for us in terms of having any discoverability. And in addition, we felt that the work is so particular and so very beautiful that we wanted to give a title that better encompassed what is happening within the book. We had to get permission for that. We wrote a pretty lengthy brief to the Japanese editor to say why we wanted to make the change, so that they could understand it and we would be, you know, courteous in the process in terms of respecting the incredible work they had already done to make the book. You can also see here that we decided to not frame the images as they had been in the Japanese edition, but to let all the kind of messy edges of the art show. And that was another decision we made with, you know, we took with the permission of the Japanese editor, having written them a brief as to why we thought this would be a valuable thing to do, with part of our thinking being that it would engage the young reader not only in a book about light and the changing time of day, but also about what's in the frame and what's outside of the frame, and engage them in a conversation about that. This is the companion book about water. And here's a book from the famous Gianni Rodari, who is one of Italy's great children's authors. Some very funky photos we took to promote it. And this was really bringing Gianni Rodari to English language readers for the first time. There was a bit of a kind of truncated edition of Telephone Tales that was published in the UK in the 1970s and minorly made its way here. But with our publication of this book in 2020, it was kind of the launch of Rodari into a general readership here. And then last but not least, I'll finish quickly. We have an imprint called Unruly, which we launched in 2020 during COVID, which proposes illustrated books, really picture books, narrative picture books for YA and adult readers. So I think I've taken more time than I had, but thank you very much. And it was really nice to be with all of you.
You can continue, Claudia. There's, I mean, if you want to share more, that's perfectly fine. Or Kathleen, if you would like to share more from the publisher's perspective. ILA has been incredibly generous with our time slot. And we also want to invite questions. If you have a question, you can put it in the chat, or perhaps unmute yourself and share a question. Perhaps I should just thank ILA again, the International Literacy Association, for their generous work with us and helping us pull this all together. And of course, the United States Board on Books for Young People as well. If you are not a member of ILA or the International Board on Books for Young People, IBY, or USBBY, you might be interested in joining your own affiliate group in the country where you reside, or join ours, that's fine. But you can find information about all of these books about the USBBY Outstanding International Books on our webpage. That has been shared in the chat, but we can share that again, usbby.org, and you look for awards and lists, and you will find information about those books. So would any of our presenters like to share more information, or do we have a questions that people would like to ask? And is there a link to get the list of these titles shared? We will be sharing the transcript for this presentation, so you should be able to find it. If you've registered and are attending, you should receive a link. I believe one of our ILA representatives could address that more succinctly.
We do have a link we can share in the chat. We will also be making this video available if you were here. We have, when you registered, this video will be shared out. And I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be putting this on our YouTube page as well. So we'll have information about that in the description on the YouTube page when that comes out. So all this information can be included with it. And we do have the list. You can see there's a link in the chat if you look in the Zoom chat at the moment.
And there is a question from Koshi, I'm guessing, I'm not sure if I'm saying your name correctly, about joining ILA. Yes, the International Literacy Association, you can join. It doesn't matter where you live, what country you live in. There are affiliate groups. Here in the US, there are affiliate groups in all of the states, but also the International Literacy Association. They have wonderful conferences and presentations like this all the time. So it's a great organization to be a part of. Other questions or comments? Thank you all for attending. I don't know if Miriam, if you would like to say a few words, or Evie.
I have a question.
Go ahead, please.
Go ahead, please. Yes. Are any of these books on a book banning list? You know, that's running around the United States. So are any of the book banners running around threatening, promising, hoping they'll do something? You know, just being negative. That's all I really want to know.
To my knowledge, none of the books have appeared on any banned list, and the committee that selects the books, we think very, very carefully. We want to make available the very best in literature from around the world and consider the illustrations, the writing, translations. It's so very important to us. And I recommend these books all the time to children in grades K through 12 and to my students. So I don't feel that there's any worry with any of the books. Evie, or I know I saw Kathy Short was she served on the committee before, and maybe if either of them would like to address that concern or issue.
I mean, Isaac, I could say that it's Claudia here. Our associate editor, Emily, was just at TLA, and there were a lot of conversations going on there about the censorship. And she spoke with one of a librarian in the booth about Bedtime for Bo, and the librarian said that there was a lot of nudity in Bo, and that it might be too much nudity for their collection. So so no, the book has not been banned or had any troubles, but it was an interesting comment that this librarian shared. She thought that it might be too much nudity for quite a few collections in the state of Texas.
I'm kind of paging through the book right now, and I do know, I thought that there was one image. Yeah, here's an image. They're actually in the bathroom, and you see the child from behind. But I think that Sarah Lissa spoke to this a little bit, and you have also, Claudia, with regard to bringing a different perspective about literature for us, because as I mentioned to Mari earlier, or excuse, yeah, Mari Kenstad Janssen, she is from Oslo, and I lived in Oslo, just several blocks away from the Vigeland sculpture park, and it all of the sculptures in the park are nude, and you know, it's a part of culture, it's a part of life, and I think that maybe there is an American perspective that gets a little bit caught up in images where it doesn't need to be. And I mean, I don't know, you know, it's, if you're in a bathtub, you're not going to have clothes on, so.
Let's hope not.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Again, Miriam or Evie, if you would like to say something.
I just want to thank all the presenters. I mean, it was a wonderful webinar, I thought. And I'd also like to say thank you all for attending.
Great. Well, thank you. Yes, Evie?
I just wanted to echo Miriam's thoughts and thank our phenomenal presenters. It was just a wonderful, wonderful webinar, and we're so grateful to ILA, one of our USBBY's partners, and to Miriam and to Isaac for doing such a wonderful job of organizing this webinar. And thank you to all of you who registered and participated today. It was really very inspirational and a really wonderful webinar. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. And look for future webinars with ILA, and hopefully we'll pull another one of these together. Thank you all so much for attending, and have a nice evening or a good morning for some of you in Australia, or wherever you happen to be in the world. Thank you. Sarah Lissa, did you want to say something or just to say goodbye?